Hello and welcome to the Strategic Bookkeeper podcast. Okay, my friends, this has turned into a three-part series on pricing for profit and joy, which is kind of definitely part of a four-part series that started with Plan for Success. Okay, so it's a bit like a mini course in audio form, which is awesome because if you're a busy multitasking mum or dad or bookkeeper in general, audio is such a great way to learn what you need to learn. Okay, so if I was way back early in my journey and I was listening to these podcasts, my mind would be a little bit blown. So I'm going to rinse and repeat and just suggest that you remember you've got this four-part series to listen to over and over again. In this episode, I want to focus on robust pricing strategy because we've already taken a look at Smart, Simple suite of products and also incorporating advisory. So it's a bit of a three-step process or more of an ecosystem actually that you find on my Bookkeeper Blueprint under products and pricing. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the episode so we can learn what we need to learn. I'm Jeannie Savage, the Strategic Bookkeeper. I've been in practice for 14 years, but more importantly, 5 years in, I achieved a lifestyle practice. This means I scaled my business, could take my hands off the wheel, and draw a nice six-figure income while being time rich. And that's what I call my dream on my terms. I was recently awarded Women in Finance Innovator of the Year, recognizing my book, my podcast, my program, and my impact globally. The Strategic Bookkeeper is my life's work, and the opportunity to help bookkeepers globally achieve the income and lifestyle that sets them free absolutely fills my cup. Please do connect with me on socials at the Strategic Bookkeepers Way private Facebook group or shoot me an email, hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global. Okay, let's jump into today's episode, and I'm going to totally name it to tame it. You know, I use that phrase a little bit, but I find that it's really helpful when you show up to serve people like this, okay? It's a bit of a behind the scenes, but my tech is playing up. So as I record this, I'm attempting to record it across two platforms, and I just recorded this once already and it was so good. It was so awesome. So I hope to make this podcast episode just as awesome. So let's dive into this third part of pricing, which is part of a four-part series, okay? So the first thing I want to ask you to do is please do listen to the first three, okay? Because I'm not going to do much rinsing and repeating in this episode. My expectation is you listen to the other three episodes. They're not super long. Two of them are 20 minutes. Another one's about 30 minutes. You can speed me up if that works for you. And these 4 episodes is really designed to use as a bit of a mini course, okay? And I know by the time I finish this episode, you will be able to use these 4 episodes to absolutely, if you learn and then you take action, one little bit of action, one step at a time, then I know that you will increase the profit in your practice. Yeah. As a result, you will increase the time. You will also find that that all leads to you delighting your clients. Okay. How do I know that? I've been there, done that. And I'll be sharing some things today just as an example of that as well. Okay. And what I just said there comes back to what I'll always say and what in my heart I want for you. And that is to build a thriving practice, delight your clients, and live your dream on your terms. But it is linear, my friends. You need to first put your oxygen mask on first, build your thriving practice. That will give you the oxygen, the space, everything you need to delight your clients, to serve your clients in a way that is even better, even dreamier than what you're doing right now. Because I know that you want to help people, okay? And putting your oxygen mask on first, okay? Pricing for profit and joy is how you're going to serve more people even better. How do I know that? Been there, done that, made all the mistakes, okay? And now doing it the way I do it, where I have a highly profitable practice with all the parts of the pricing ecosystem in place. It's how my clients are 100 times happier, yeah, paying premium fees for me to deliver a premium service, okay? So that's a bit of a key takeaway that I'd like you to have at the end of this episode. And now let's continue. So I'm right now looking at the bookkeeping practice blueprint that I give you access to, which you should have printed out and on your desk, okay? So in the products and pricing, which is the second part of the blueprint on the left-hand side, the left-hand side being what do I need to have ready when a PC knocks on the door? Before I answer the door to a PC, a prospective client, what do I have to have nailed in order to maximize the opportunity that exists? And we're going to look at some before after so that you understand what it looks like when you don't have this stuff nailed compared to what it looks like when you do. And in the first recording that I did that didn't work, I actually ran the numbers with you live, which I'll do again. But to give you a heads up, two of the numbers I ran, one was that I would make a profit of around $7,700 a year versus another scenario, which a lot of bookkeepers are in, maybe 9 out of 10, where their profit would be more like $1,800. So that's $1,800 compared to $7,700 on the same client. And let me tell you right now, the client paying $7,700, I hope that I can show you through the episode, is a happier, more raving fan client that's getting the destination they want. Okay. In my book, I teach you about brand and why it's important to sell the why, and that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? And to rinse and repeat from other episodes, if you're trying to sell what you do, which is the features and functions of bookkeeping, it's a lot like selling or trying to sell the long haul flight rather than the destination. So if you go online looking for a holiday to Paris, when you see the packages that come up, do they tell you all about the however long it is, 20-hour flight that you're going to have to take in economy class, squashed and with a migraine at the end of it? Or do they just focus on Paris and the flight is the necessary evil that you would rather not have to take and pay for? You're going to pay thousands of dollars for that flight, but it's just so you have the destination, okay? Now, that is digressing a bit into selling the why, but it's an important thing to touch on again and again and again, because bookkeepers, almost all of them, are getting it wrong. Okay, they're selling what? And good company, I was doing it early on as well. So I ran those numbers, okay, and there was that profitability of, say, $7,700 a year. Let's call it $7,500 a year, or pounds, or wherever you are in the world, versus the classic bookkeeper, if they were doing okay, might only make $1,800 a year profit, okay? And then another result I looked at was a bookkeeper who looks like they're charging really high hourly rates, but because they have not got a robust pricing strategy, which includes minimum monthly job charge. Yeah. So a bookkeeper who doesn't have that, but they're charging, say, $180 an hour for a quarterly service. Sounds amazing. And you think, if I could charge that, all my hopes and dreams would come true and everything in my bookkeeping practice would be fixed. Well, when I did my calculations, basically that bookkeeper would make about $500 a year on that service, that quarterly service at that high hourly rate. I would make $5,500 a year. And I'm going to explain that to you today, okay? And before we go on any further on robust pricing strategy, I will just mention, if any of this triggers you, if any of it takes your brain to a place of, but that'd be overcharging or anything like that, then you are stuck solidly in employee mindset. And once again, good company, I was there early on for ages, okay? So in the last episodes, we talked about smart, simple suite of products. We talked about incorporating advisory. This is an ecosystem which also includes robust pricing strategy. And that's what we're getting into now. Now, the headlines on that, reading it directly from the draft of my book that I'm writing at the moment. So in terms of that robust pricing strategy, you want to have a minimum one-off job charge and a minimum monthly job charge. So if I just give that a different summary, the minimum one-off job charge is, for example, when a prospective client, a PC, comes to you, you know, those PCs that need software training. So they want to do the bookkeeping themselves. They want you to train them in how to use the software. Maybe they want some training on some other things too. This, my friends, needs to be categorized. So if we're talking camps, Camp A, Camp B, this kind of client needs to be categorized. Camp A, one-off job, compared to monthly recurring revenue, MRR, which is the holy grail and what will put food on your table. The one-off jobs will not. Okay, so certainly they're a good product line and there's something that many of us are going to want to have. Some of us won't. Some of us will only serve monthly recurring revenue clients. Okay, and that's an ideology shift. Like, oh, I get to choose my own adventure. Yes, it's your business, your practice. Okay, I did a podcast called Know Your Terms, Back Yourself, and then Value the Heck out of your VIP clients. And the bookkeepers who listen to that rave about it and they keep it in their heart and in their mind. And I recommend that you listen to that episode as well. I'll see if Joselle can pop that in the show notes. Now let's continue. So in terms of a RUS pricing strategy, okay, so we've talked about the minimum one-off job charge, which I want to come back to in a second with some examples. The other part really is minimum monthly job charge. Look, there are other moving parts to a robust pricing strategy, but these are two massive ones. Like if I was looking at the parts that make the most difference. Quick podcast interruption. The doors to my transformation program are opening for one final time in 2024. This is your last chance to get in this year. To get all the details with zero obligation, head over to the strategicbookkeeper.global/waitlist. Add your name to the list to be the first in line for all the info and early access to exclusive bonuses. Do not miss out, my friends. I'll see you in there. The parts that make the most difference. This is the two of them. Okay. So minimum one-off job charge and minimum monthly job charge. And I want to dive into those now. And I might just start with minimum one-off job charge, give you some examples. Okay. And while I'm doing this, could you please think about your now future? So what are you doing now? Can you relate to the mistakes? Yeah, because everyone's going to be in a different place. So these are going to be real life examples of what I've done in the past, what I do now, and also maybe inside my tribe, inside my program. So just as an example, one of my beautiful bookkeepers, Deb, that we hear from a lot. So you hear from her in a podcast episode, and we did publish her results in the program. So 12 months in, she did 331% increase in her net profit. Okay, so her revenue went up by 270%, but her net profit went up by 331%, which is exactly what I want to see and what I need to see. If you're inside my program and you told me your revenue went up, but your profit didn't go up even more, there's going to be problems with that. And that is very linked to what we talk about in these. So just as an example of what Deb did early on, and I did too. So a lot of us do offer software training or different types of training. Okay. And Deb was offering training, but ultimately she was doing it on an hourly basis. And even if you can charge out on an hourly basis, and even if you can increase your hourly rate, that is a broken pricing system. That is breaking the rules of the bookkeeping practice blueprint. Okay. And I'll explain why. So early on, both Deb and I, we both charged out fees. And then I started increasing my fees a bit for training. And I thought that was clever. And sure, it's marginally smarter than a low rate, but actually not much. And hopefully I explain why. So when I met Deb, she was charging out a certain amount for training. Let's call it, I don't know, $70 an hour, $100 an hour. And then really quickly after joining my program, because inside the program, nailing your products and pricing, I ask you to do fast, like pretty much as soon as you join. It's the first thing I need you to do, okay? And then we work on it together for a long time, because some bookkeepers in practice, like the one I explained in the last episode or the one before that, she had to spend a year on legacy clients. Okay. So, but I get you to nail it, because we need to put that line down, legacy on one side, new on the next. For now and for forever, we need to have fixed everything and be using the product and pricing ecosystem. So we are building that beautiful, highly profitable practice. Okay. So let's say a client needed couple of hours of training, then Deb might have conceivably charged out $200. Now, when we started working together and she got my productized suite of services, she elected to start charging $500 for up to 3 hours of training. Now, in my practice, we would charge between $1,000 and $1,300 for that, because our minimum one-off job charge is about $1,300 right now, as at the 24th of August, 2024. Okay. And that is going to change all the time, not only based on date, but just based on how I feel, based on whether I'm regulating capacity with price. That little phrase, regulate capacity with price. The successful entrepreneurs on this planet, and there's only 5 to 10% of us, okay? 90 to 95% of entrepreneurs, business owners, bookkeepers, same, yeah, are going to fail to ever thrive. So what do the 5 or so percent do? Well, one of the parts of your pricing and products is regulate capacity with price. And I don't really go into that a lot in this podcast, okay? But why I might charge $1,300 for something that Deb has chosen to charge $500 or $600 for, yeah, that's a part of the equation. It can just be how I feel. I get to price the way I want to price, okay? But I absolutely follow the rules of the game, and the rules are simple. As I say, simple doesn't always seem easy. Now, I haven't checked in with Deb, but I suspect, based on the fact that she's over tripled her profits, we've had to help her get a full-time staff member, and she has her days where she's pretty frazzled with how busy she is. And we do need to put in the hours and the attitude at the beginning before we pull the time out, okay? I suspect, and also Deb has another standalone course of mine, which is Be a Brilliant Trainer. And in there, I really encourage bookkeepers to charge out a minimum of $1,000 for a 3-hour training package, and I explain how that works. So I would suspect that Deb's charging more like $1,000 now for that training. So previously, where she was just charging, say, $200, she's now making $800 more, okay? Once again, if your brain is going to, that sounds like overcharging, well, then you're stuck in employee mindset, a time when you got paid an hourly rate for doing an hourly job. You're not in a job anymore. You're running a business. And a bookkeeping practice does not sell their time. They sell an outcome, okay? They use their time as one of the many things they use to solve that problem. We can use our time, our experience, our expertise, our intellectual property. We can bundle in a course, a resource. We can give videos as part of a training, right? So an ideology shift that you need to make is that it is not your time that is the only part of how you are solving problems. So if you're only pricing your time, you're using a completely broken business model. Okay. And the best thing you could do right now is to take a moment and take a breath and actually leave that belief behind, leave the employee mindset behind. Okay. But we're not going to focus anymore on that. We're going to keep going on minimum one-off job charge and minimum monthly job charge. So way back when, I was making more mistakes in my practice, but when I got to a point where I went fixed pricing, it was like an explosion in my brain, and I really began to understand more of what I needed to do. And one of the things I realized is, oh my goodness, I needed to not only fix price, but I needed to begin to understand what I really needed to charge out in order to be profitable, yeah, in order to put my oxygen mask on first. And what my brain realized is that when somebody called me and they just needed a little bit of help, they needed a one-off job, as I like to categorize it now, that I needed to charge out a minimum, whether they needed me for 15 minutes or 5 hours. Yeah. And I will never forget, I know exactly where I was when this happened. So I was sitting at my kitchen bench in the home I lived in before this one, and a prospective client reached out and he literally needed 15 minutes of help. I was at a fork in the road, and I want to put it to you that you're at a fork in the road as well. Okay. So I was at a fork in the road where I could go one way right? Which was the way where I go, oh, okay, 15 minutes, employee mindset. I'll just kind of figure that out and I'll work out how to help you, and not use a robust pricing strategy that included minimum charge out rates for one-off jobs. Or another fork in the road where in that moment I created it, I tested it, I tried it, and I looked at the customer satisfaction as well. And that's what I did. And I charged that client $400 or $500 to deliver the outcome that he wanted. And the outcome was he wanted something fixed, and he wanted to know that it was fully fixed. So I knew that that required, creating an invoice, sending him an invoice, getting that paid to me, right? There's all the admin costs. It required me looking at the problem, fixing it, and then all the great unknowns, like does the accountant ring and I have to talk to him? Ultimately, at the face of it, it looked like a 15-minute job, and it was a 15-minute job. I charged $400 or $500 way back in 2015, so 10 years ago. The client was so happy, and I had the oxygen to serve him properly. Whereas when you stay stuck in employee mindset and I'm solving problems with just my time, therefore I'm charging for my time, you run out of oxygen. You run out of the profit that creates the time to serve people well. I know this because I have been there. Okay, so you've got a couple of choices right now: to accept it and change, or to stay stuck in busy rather than go to thriving. So I'll never forget that, because it really was the beginning of maybe I'll call it the crystal realm, of just realizing, oh my goodness, this is about me really creating the oxygen in my business, the profit, and my clients are happier than ever. So from there, I just kept going, okay? And my training packages started rounding out. And that's where I got to where I am today. So with regard to minimum one-off job charge, you need to do that too. Now, I'm going to make recommendations. I'm going to say that in your bookkeeping practice, just like in mine, personally, I don't think we should be doing work that's less than $1,000. Call it $997, okay, as a minimum. But I do have bookkeepers inside the program, bookkeepers I chat to, that are starting at $500 or $600. But bookkeepers I help would not usually go less than that, okay? Because to thrive in a business, okay, think about a plumber and a call-out charge and a minimum rate and a minimum job charge. This is the rules of the game. This is the blueprint. It's not argue away the why you think you should be charging less or doing low value work, okay? You are running a business and you need a robust products and pricing ecosystem to support the architecture and the framework of that business in order to actually make a good profit, to, like a business owner should be able to scale and have time in your business, to have the space to create raving fan clients as well, okay? So now, before we move on, I'm just going to ask you to ask yourself, what action do you think you can take around minimum one-off job charge? Do a bit of a now future, okay? All this stuff is great to put in your bookkeeping practice playbook that I shared in the first of this 4-part series. But now let's move on to minimum monthly job charge, okay? So once a prospective client has come to you, you've done a 5 to 15 minute free needs analysis, and then you've moved into charging them for a file health check, okay, which is like a needs analysis where you get paid, but there are so many other reasons that you do that I go into in my book, and I've also gone into in other podcast episodes, okay? But once you've done that, you're really into quoting out the MRR work, okay, the monthly recurring revenue work. And just like you need a minimum one-off job charge, you need a minimum monthly job charge. Now, there are 2 examples that I gave when I tried to record this episode earlier. So I'm really going to try and refresh in my own mind those examples. Once again, I want you to think, what are you doing right now, so that you can understand what you should be doing, yeah? So basically, when that prospective client is at that point, let's say I identify that they need about an hour and a quarter a week. So I go, okay, it's about an hour a week for the basic bookkeeping. It's about another hour for end of month. And let's say inside my pricing calculator, my calculator rate is about $100 an hour, which is about what you should be charging as at August 24 in Australia, okay? Depending on where you are in the world, we can get those rates from the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. We didn't have to get them there. It's really when you really understand what's needed to run a successful business, you work this stuff out. But it is nice to know that that is virtually the same rate that the ICB has, okay? So if you're charging less than $100 an hour, or that's what's in your calculator rate, that's one of the errors that you're making, okay? If you're charging $70 an hour or $80 an hour or $90, you're charging less than what you'll need to charge to scale your business and earn as much as you could in a job, okay? And pull the time wealth out. Simple, black and white. Accept it, do it. Okay, so let's say I was charging out $100 an hour. Then my calculator would work that client out to need to pay me about $570 a month, okay? That is how I work out a fixed price. And in this episode, I want you to get more learning around fixed price versus outcome billing because it's tricky, yeah? Ultimately, fixed price is a math equation, whereas outcome billing is where we move to selling the outcome, which is where you price it at whatever you want to price it for many reasons, okay? But this should be the beginning of the journey that we go on because your journey around pricing goes on forever. But I would say the first year is where you have more of those aha moments, okay? So let's say I've done the calculator rate 570. Now, normally I would at least round that up to $595 or $600. So that's an extra $30 a month. I'm also going to sell advisory from the get-go. So maybe I'm adding on another $250 a month, okay, for investigating the numbers, which most new clients want to pick up because the way that we present it to them, they absolutely understand that this is necessary for doing well in their business. And that's why they've come to me, not for the long haul flight that is the bookkeeping, but to find someone to help them do better in business. Okay. And that's how I'm going to do it. But we know that bare ass minimum, just to keep the books up to date and accurate, I might quote $600 a month and then maybe $850 to do that, investigate the numbers. This is some napkin numbers for you. Okay. In terms of fixed price versus outcome, I've increased that by just $30. Not a lot, okay, but it's still turning it from fixed to outcome. There are times where I might say, well, my calculator says $571, but I'm going to quote out $700 or $800. And there can be lots of reasons for that. It can be that I'm regulating capacity with price. It can be that in consultation with that client, I just feel like that's more commiserate with where their business is and the kind of value that I want to give them. It can be because my gut feel is to charge that. It can be any reason, okay? But when I do that, I'm moving away from employee, I'm solving a problem with purely time, into entrepreneur, I'm selling outcomes. I'm like a real estate agent, charging a percentage. And there are many bookkeepers and many accountants that look at the profit and loss to charge a percentage of turnover, okay, for the finance function of a business because that's completely normal. And it can and should be a part of your pricing equation. This is why the fixed price is just one of the steps that you take to get to outcome billing. And looking at revenue and looking at percentages is another way. So I might decide I want to charge $1,200 a month for that package, okay? And it's not about what I charge, it's about the outcome I get. If that client sees bunnies and rainbows and makes more profit, more time, and sleeps better at night through working with me, are they getting the value that they want to need versus another scenario, which I'll tell you about now, okay? So that's given you a bit of insight into minimum monthly job charge because that example by default already has the minimum monthly job charge in it. But here's an example of one that doesn't, and following on with the story that I want to tell, which I've alluded to there. So another prospective client comes along, we do the same thing, needs analysis, file, health check, catch up, rectification, and then we realize that based on what they need and want, the functional stuff, the bookkeeping stuff, the compliance stuff is only going to take half an hour a month. Yeah. Then if we were just using the fixed price method, we would charge out $50 a month for that. Okay. And that's how bookkeepers get busy rather than thriving. And an example that I want to give you, okay, because to be crystal clear and tell you exactly what we're doing and most of the members inside my program are doing is, as at August 2024, our minimum monthly job charge, our MRR minimum, is $270 a month. So if you come in with a half an hour a month, an hour a month, 2 hours a month, it's always going to be a minimum starting point of $270 a month. Okay. Because in order to serve you, we need to serve ourselves first. Okay. So this is really just teaching you the robust pricing strategy. Okay. And minimum monthly job charge. So I spoke to a bookkeeper once who was thinking of joining my program, and she said she was really busy, lots of clients, she had staff, but the profitability really wasn't where it should be, and the time, well, certainly wasn't. Now, she thought that she was making some smart decisions. For example, she said, well, Jeannie, I charge up to $180 an hour, but I wanted the details. So she said, well, I do that when it's a quarterly client. Right? So I get a quarterly client. They just need an hour of work really, but I charge $180 for that. Please don't do quarterly work. You will build a busy, joy-sucking practice, not a profitable one. Okay. So number one, we don't do quarterly work. So that client that comes along, they absolutely walk into my practice and they say, Jeannie, can you help me? And I say, yes. It's $270 a month. And then I upgrade them into investigating the numbers, okay, so that they're paying a lot of the time more like $520 a month, okay? So that half an hour a month, yes, our revenue will be $520 a month, yeah? So that would be, if we look at the other bookkeeper, so I've got my calculator here. So the other bookkeeper was charging $180 a quarter. So that is $720 a year. And if we take the staff members' costs, we take $200 approximately off. That gives her a profit of $520 with a cost-focused client that stays for convenience and nothing else. So in my scenario where I'm charging that same client out by using a proper business model. Yeah, a business model that will mean that you're still in business, a robust pricing strategy. That's $520 a month times 12, which is just over $6,000 a year compared to $700 a year. And now let's look at the profitability on that. So let's say it's going to take about an hour and a half a month because there's the functional and there's the investigate the numbers. That's a profit of near on $5,000. Okay, so $500 profit versus $5,000 profit, okay? And the kicker being that the client paying the lower fee is paying a time for money fee and $180 an hour. That client knows they could probably go elsewhere and get it cheaper if we're talking hourly. When you charge like that, it sets your client up to be cost focused, okay? Versus the client that I'm working with, that same client walked into my practice, was happy to pay $520 a month or $570 a month, and is a raving fan because they are getting all the things they want and need. They're getting peace of mind. They're getting a platinum level of service unmatched by any other. They're getting a team who is responsive and available because we never go over our capacity, because we don't need to, because there's plenty of oxygen in the business. We're investigating the numbers, and so they're able to see how the business is performing and make amazing decisions, leading to them increasing their revenue, their profit, their time wealth, and they are just never going anywhere. Okay, I've tried to have conversations from time to time with these clients around pricing, and they stop me and they say, Jeannie, I don't want to know about it. I don't care what you charge me. I couldn't do business without you. Okay. So now I've shared with you on minimum one-off job charges. I've shared with you on minimum monthly job charges. Okay. I've shared with you so much you can use to, in your practice, look at what you're doing now, what you need to be doing to shift your mindset, because mindset first, productivity second, mechanics third. So the mechanics of what I've shared with you today work best when you get your mindset right, okay? And when you become a highly productive entrepreneur. I'd love to hear what you thought about these, so shoot me an email if you'd like to make any comments, and I'll see you soon. Okay, my friend, now it is time to take action. So What are you going to do with what you learned today? The way I see it, you've got two options. You can go it alone to try and save some money, or you can back yourself and go for it and join my tribe. And let me tell you, we are knocking it out of the ballpark. That's not a sales pitch. That is me serving you, dare I say, courageously. To find success, I 100% know you need the mechanics, which is like the keys to the kingdom, but you also need to get your mindset right and be super productive. And these are all things I help you with inside the program. I could go on about this forever because I really want this for you. Have a prosperous week, and I'll see you in the next episode.